Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing Oakspire by Lucky Duck Games. Oakspire is a 1 to 5 player action selection and tableau building game. This is a prototype, all rules and components subject to change, and I'll have a link to the crowdfunding campaign down below. Additionally, this channel is sponsored by Allplay, more about them at the end of the video. In Oakspire, players are going to be trying to build blueprints. Depending on the player count, endgame will be triggered at different numbers of blueprints, and then, more importantly, your goal is to have the most points at the end of it all. I think the easiest way to do this is to show you the basic concept of the game, and then walk you through a few turns so you can see the dynamics in motion, so you can see the, dynamics is the wrong term, so you can see the engine in motion, and then go from there into my thoughts, links and timestamps to everything down below. In the game, you're going to have blueprint cards. Blueprints have points on the blueprints, and additionally throughout the game, we'll be earning coins over here that are going to have a 1-to-1 ratio for points. You're going to be trying to gather wood, driftwood at first, and then level it up in your own little personal player board over here in order to then spend that driftwood on building the blueprints from your blueprint area to your completed buildings, at which point they'll give you the points as well as abilities, either one-time use, ongoing, endgame, things like that. So basically, cards in your hand are going to be the engine for everything. This is a multi-use card game. You're going to be using them for blueprints and then you're going to be placing them into your blueprint area and then trying to construct them. So to that end, let's go ahead and walk you through the basic cycle of play. Seeing over here, this card over here is going to allow us to move things along the river. We want to get our hands, in fact, we can get our hands on a little bit more driftwood. That might be the best thing to do. So right now, I'm going to go ahead and I will play, that might be a good one. That's not a good one right now. Let's go ahead and play this one. No, we're going to play, we'll play this card over here. So this card over here, we're going to play it for that green action. That green action corresponds to over here, and that's going to allow us to turn the card in our pile over here into the amount of driftwood in our area. So we'll take this card, we'll discard it along with the action card, and we'll take 2 driftwood down into our area, combined with the starting 2 we had over there, which is player setup. It's a little more complicated than game 2. It's player setup. Either way, we now have 4 driftwood in here. That was action 1. Then we're going to go ahead and, we already have the driftwood there, so don't need to get anything else. In fact, let's see if we could. I'm trying to min-max things already. I shouldn't do that. Let's go ahead and look for other cards that we might want to build. I think that we will actually take, no, that won't work for us. You know what? We're going to go ahead and place this card. This is a good card over here. Action 2, we're going to place this into our blueprint area with the hopes of constructing it later. So this goes into our blueprint area along with our other card over here. And we're going to go to set up to now take action 3. And for our last action, we will go ahead and take a card from display. We'll take this action. This might be a strong one to be able to level up our various driftwood over here, which we'll explain more soon. So action 3 is taking a card into our hand. That's going to be an example of 3 actions. We set this back to the beginning, and those are our 3 actions. We have placed it, we started the card over here, we harvested into here, we went ahead and we put a card from our hand into our blueprints, and then we took a card from display. That's 3 actions. But at the end of your turn, you also take the bottommost action. In fact, all players can take the bottommost action on the display of cards. So everyone right now can either construct blueprints or alternatively can move water along the river, which is what we need to do in order to make it into better types of wood. So we're going to take that action over here, which we specifically set ourselves up for, and we're going to move all of these over here into this zone right like so. This will then be discarded, and then we drive the cards down, and the next player goes ahead and goes. We're going to go ahead and have them take their turns, whatever it is, and let's say they went ahead and grabbed this over here. They took that from display, shifting things down, and they went ahead and, maybe they gathered this card into their hand, and then at the end of their turn, this card is going to activate, which we fortunately can benefit from. Because right now, we can either move things from our workshop to where they can be used for buildings, or alternatively, we can actually take this action, which will allow us to move to basically refine the various types of wood in our workshop. So we're going to take that action and refine the wood. So we're going to move the driftwood into planks of wood. Now we could do any number of them. If we wanted some number of driftwood for some reason, maybe we'd keep it, and there are reasons why you might want that. But right now, we refined it to the next level up of wood, which is important for us because you can see over here, we actually need 4 of those logs for these blueprints we're having over here. That gets discarded, the display refills, and it's back to our turn. Going back to our turn, we're going to go ahead and try to move those cards over there. Let's go ahead and take a look at the actions in our hand. We don't have a way to move these, so our first action is we're going to take this into our hand. Ooh, this is actually going to be a little trickier to do everything we want. We won't be able to do it all. That's fine. We're going to take this action into our hand. We're going to put these 2 cards down over here, and that's going to be our second turn. We place 2 cards into our pile. We took 1 card into our hand. At the end of the round, we can do this action, but we don't actually want to. Although in this case, Again, if I was playing the long game here, I might actually take the free action in order to refine this further, because this Science Conference Hall actually wants 4 of the top most refined type of wood, which means we could play the long game and do that. I want to show you how this works, so I'm not going to do that. We're going to discard that. All players can benefit from that action, and then it goes back to display. They'll take their turn. Let's pretend that they end with this action over here. I cannot benefit from that action. I cannot build, and I cannot move anything over, so I'll get discarded. Back to my turn over here. Let's go ahead and refill display and take the actions I would take. So at this point, looking at the board over here, we do want to benefit from sending some wood along. So we're going to play this card over here, which is a plus action. I can do both actions. So I'm both going to turn this into 8 chips, discarding those, putting a bunch of chips over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then additionally, I'm going to move these along the river, where now they can be used towards the construction of buildings. That was action 1. Action 2 is I'm going to draw this card into my hand, and then action 3 is I'm going to play this to construct one of my buildings. I'm going to construct my discovery center, spending 3 of those wood over there, those 3 logs, and now passive, after constructing a building, I can discard 1 in order to gain instant rewards twice. That gives me a little ongoing ability that will go into my existing buildings. At the end of the round, I will benefit from this action, which means I can ship all these little logs over here along the river like so, and then discard it. That's basically the cycle of play. Again, I kind of walked you through how this will play out because I think it makes more sense to see it in action. But the general idea is you have 3 actions a turn. You can draw cards from the center display, you can play cards from your hand down as a blueprint, you can play cards from your hand down into your supply of wood chips over here, and then you can take actions on the cards themselves, whatever corresponds to those cards, to be able to harvest your wood chips into the river, to move them along the river, to process them in your workshop, and then to ship the final supplies where they can then be used in blueprints to construct those buildings. You also have your little own ability over here, which gives you an ongoing unique ability to yourself, as well as a way that you can upgrade that, getting a stronger ability during the game. And then past that, you're going to be adding up the points on your constructed buildings at the end of the game, as well as remaining resources, as well as the points you have, and seeing who wins in a game of Oakspire. With that said, let's go into what I like, don't like, can see others not liking about this game. Starting off with what I like. In general, the art is already well produced. Now, I do have a prototype over here, so I can't speak to final components, but I've seen some of the final components of what they're going to look like, and you have nice chunky wood bits, again, maybe deluxe version and all that. But overall, the art's already starting off. If this were a final retail version, it would already be fine, and then the deluxe version only seems to further enhance from there. Additionally, the building of your tableau, and specifically the way you have so many cards, you have this giant stack of cards. There's a bajillion cards over here in this deck. Not actually a bajillion, but close to a bajillion cards. And each one has a unique little ability on it. From endgame, from ongoing, from one-time use, all these various abilities you have on your cards over here, and trying to build the perfect, like if you're playing a 3-player game, I believe it's 7-6-5, if I'm not mistaken. I double check the rule book, but I think a 3-player game, you're building towards 7 blueprints. And if that's the case, you're trying to combine those 7 abilities, all while trying to build your own perfect tableau, synergizing those cards and those abilities. Again, from like 100 plus cards, picking these 7 that are most going to benefit you. Granted, you don't have access to all 100 at a time, but watching them as they come out. And the multi-use cards really means you can afford to grab cards, working your way towards one strategy, and then pivot and utilize them for their action, for their driftwood, whatever it is you want as you try to work your way through it. Trying to time up how you take cards from the center display is a fun little puzzle, because you're going to be taking cards which will affect the bottom free action, which will affect what goes on over here. And so choosing the right action, because it gives you the driftwood you need, while setting you up for a way to be able to benefit from both actions, is an incredible part of the strategy. Again, the multi-use cards really leans its way into this, because you're trying to use those actions in the right order. And speaking of which, you have to do that for other players' turns as well. Meaning you kind of want to make yourself set up in a way that you can always benefit from any free actions that are happening. And so you kind of working your way towards, yes, I want to have a bunch of driftwood out in play so I can immediately harvest it all, but also getting a card out because someone else might do something that gives you that action that leads you to being able to complete a building sooner, that leads you to being able to benefit from that building's ability for more of the game. All of that ties in nicely to a nice strategic engine that is fairly light and accessible. Like the actual rules for this are pretty condensed. The game time comes in at 45, what does the box say? 40 boxes, 20 minutes per player. I was going to say 30 to 45 minutes, and the 30 minutes felt a bit too little, but I think 45 to 60 minutes really does feel very reasonable for this game, even for your first few games, that it only picks up as you go. Overall, it's a good balance of rules overhead, game time, a lighter to medium game weight, while giving you a lot of crunchiness over how you put together and how you build up your tableau. As far as what I don't like in the game, the biggest issues I have with it, I'm hoping are prototype only. And I say hoping, it's always tricky. The tricky part about reviewing prototypes is you are grading something that's a work in progress. Let's go over the other things, then come back to the specific prototype issues. First of all, the wood iteration is not always the easiest to mentally follow. Don't get me wrong, you have it print on your player board, so it's not about understanding the rules. It's about that immediate looking at a card and trying to grade how hard it is to be able to accomplish that card, because they're all different shades of wood. That's what's going on here. So yes, driftwood's obviously the easiest, but then the levels of refinement you have, it's not the easiest to look at a card and be able to, I guess, immediately see how much work goes into crafting that card. And that's because, again, it's all different flavors of wood. That's a small little nitpick, not a big deal. A bigger deal for me is that there's not necessarily enough time to enjoy your tableau, which is going to feed into my bigger complaint, which we'll get to in a second. But the ability to enjoy your tableau as it all comes together, depending on the player count, you only have so many cards you're actually going to build. At higher player counts, you have even fewer. It is, building a 5-card engine is not nearly as fun as building a 7-card engine, because again, you're not enjoying those cards the entire way through. So a 5-card engine versus a 7-card engine might not seem like a big difference, but it means you're enjoying all of those cards for longer and able to put together more synergies in the game, which directly ties into my larger complaint. Is I think higher player counts for this game is just worse across the board. At higher player counts, it's harder to control the chaos of how to benefit from those extra actions in the game. You also get less of the blueprint cards, which allows for less synergies, and also just slows down the game in general. For me, the game's sweet spot is at a 2 to 3 player game. Even as you move into 4 players, I would rather play this at 2 than I would at 4. It's more about what you're doing with your own engine, and being able to play off another player and what they're doing and able to build your thing there is much more strategically satisfying and feels more strategically in control, which is why it's strategically satisfying. The prototype issues mostly come down to the accessibility of being able to see what's going on at the cards at a glance. First of all, the ability text is very small. And the fact that you have the board sideways, again, sideways is always relative to which player's angle it is, but it's not always easy to see a card. You're constantly grabbing cards to the river to be able to look at those cards and see what they are. You also have lots of iconography that's not necessarily in the right place or the easiest to follow. There's a little ability thing over here, not really ability, a benefit you get kind of hidden in the icons of the card that, again, is not super easy to see. You also have various iconography around these actions and how that works. When you take a double action, I didn't actually show you this because I forgot to do it while I was doing it, you pay a coin to take a double action, or you do one or the other. So this action is either that, or pay a coin to do the plus. That's not immediately obvious, and so a lot of small things like that, as far as the graphic design, as far as the immediate visibility of the game, those are small things that get in the way. Even the way like the small green symbol's kind of hidden into the artwork, and granted, it's a bunch of forests, so green symbol's gonna be hidden, but I wish there were better ways to kind of just make this game more visually obvious as you play through it. Again, a lot of those things I hope are cleared up as being just a prototype issue. As far as what I can see others not liking, the information overload is definitely a factor. For me, my biggest issue is just being able to see the text, but at any different point in the game, you're grabbing cards so fast, cards are flowing through the center row so fast, there are so many abilities. Trying to pick up which ability is best going to synergize, if you are someone that needs that perfect game, this is not a game for you. This is a game for people who are willing to grab a bunch of abilities and just make it work, make it all come together. And granted, as you play the game more, you will get better at feeling what synergizes or recognizing certain cards. But there are so many cards and they are moving fast so quickly. If you're so stuck on being able to perfectly place every single thing into your strategy, it might well be information overload for you, as well as the other players who are waiting on you throughout the game. Similarly, that system overload on the free actions as well. Sometimes actions, and again, bigger of an issue at higher player counts, but the more those free actions come through that you can't benefit from, it is one of those slightly less feel-good moments. If another player at the table is constantly benefiting from free actions and I'm constantly not, I might feel, okay, they won not because they played better, but because they just got a lot of free actions that better benefited them based on the timing of those actions. And don't get me wrong, playing around those actions and playing your board around the knowledge that you can't control exactly which free action is coming your way is a part of the strategy, but also at the end of the day, there's also luck to that. If another player is better rewarded, even though they didn't plan their board a certain way, that can be a slightly less feel-good moment in an otherwise very strategic game. As far as final thoughts on Oakspire, I really enjoy the way you're building your tableau in this game. The thing that hooks me so much on this is there's so many different cards and each one has an ability, and building your perfect tableau is a huge part of it. For me, rating-wise is a tricky one because I'm going to give this a 3.5 plus out of 5. The plus is the fact that there's certain elements that I think factor into my rating over here. I overall enjoy this game a lot. The two areas for me that I hold back a little bit are the prototype issues are present, and I'm always cautious cautious. I think this is a 4 to 5. To be clear, I think this is a final game that would be a 4 to 5 between the production, between the prototype issues, and then specifically at the player counts that I enjoy it the most. I'm just always hesitant to grade games based on where I think they will be, because that can come back and bite me if they don't end up where I think they'll end, where I think they should be. For me, it's at least a 3.5. At the right player counts, if they solve those various small issues, then I think it's a 4 out of 5. Specifically at 2 and 3 players. At 4 and 5, it's not bad. I would just rather play other games at those player counts. As far as other game recommendations, definitely check out Everdell if you're looking for a cute game of building your own tableau with cutesy little wooden animals, but woodfolk animals, I guess. And then also check out Ancient Knowledge. Ancient Knowledge from Yellow is another game of trying to get a ton of different abilities on a ton of different cards and line them up in the right sequence at the right time with a lot of multi-use things going on. That's another game that this very much gave me the vibes of. And then lastly, I mentioned that Allplay is a channel sponsor. If you're looking for another game that feels thematically similar while being mechanically very different, check out River Valley Glassworks from Allplay for a similar animal woodfolk game where there's also a river, but again, the whole engine is very, very different as far as how the game actually plays. Much more set collection than engine building. In any case, then until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Hope you found this review helpful, and as always, I hope you have a good one.